Non-alcoholic. Good to see all of you all. Hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. Want to thank Everly for inviting me. It's always a blessing when you get the opportunity to be of service in Alcoholics Anonymous and in life in general is what I've found. Uh, my sobriety date is August 3rd, 1981. My home group is 435 Compton Intergroup in the lovely city of Compton, California. If you're ever in the neighborhood, come look us up. Uh, if you got what I got, if you be an alcoholic, you're welcome. I was asked to talk about a topic, our instinctual drives and juxtaposing that with following direction or good orderly direction. Um, and I'll do my best to stay on that topic. And this is none of this can happen. Uh, this awareness of instinctual drives or the willingness to follow direction unless I've had a first step experience, you know. And that first step experience for me means annihilation. It means that all my human resources have failed. I don't got to move left. I can't live this way no more. I'm an all-time loser. All my scorecards read zero. The 12 and 12 uh, says it like this. It describes it as a state of mind that can only be described as savage. And if you've been around for a while, if you're new, you're going to have different experiences with that first step. First step situation is really every day. The beautiful thing about this is that through this process, I am no longer powerless over alcohol. That power is within me, but it's not of me. See, I have all the power I need today for any situation in life, you know, be it external or something within me. Life is life. It happens all around us, you know. But the thing that I'm facing, the biggest thing I'm facing is something within me, you know. And when you're just getting sober, and I see we have a lot of gentlemen, I think it's just a men's recovery home. I'm not sure. But when you're new, we're talking about in relation to King Alcohol. Maybe some of you are just drug addicts. I don't know. I'm an alcoholic. I did a lot of drugs, but I go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I do believe in singleness of purpose. But I can talk about all that stuff because really any of these obsessions of the mind, things that I do to try to be okay, to be able to live in this world that of myself, I really have no ability or comprehension of how to live, at least live well, live at peace, you know. Uh, so you might be having a different experience with step one, and that's okay because we all are at where we're at in these steps, along with whatever you call God. That's another thing for me. They're all labels. I'm not really interested in the label. I have labels that I like, uh, but the power is the same behind every label. It could be Christ, it could be God, it could be Buddha nature, it could be Allah, it could be any of the Hindu gods, it could be Mother Earth, whatever works for you. Maybe it's just a set of principles, spiritual in nature. Maybe it's the elements. It doesn't really matter. When I was new, they used to say that the one thing that you got to know about a power greater than yourself is that it isn't you. This belief in a power, it can't be anything but you. I don't really hold to I can make a doorknob my higher power. I get what they're saying, but I think it's kind of foolish, you know. I'm not going to be praying to a doorknob, you know. But this getting free from the bondage of alcohol or drugs, it's foundational. I got to get that, you know. And if you're anything like me, see, my story is I grew up religious. I went to private school. I went to a religious school, and I came to you find folk. I hated God. I didn't want nothing to do with God or anybody who claimed to represent God. I knew everything I needed to know about all that, and I decided very early on in life that I didn't want nothing to do with God, and I wasn't going to mess with God, and God wasn't going to mess with me, and I was okay with that. And I would hear them talking about God a lot in AA, and it really uh, I, I I reacted to it very violently. I would not tolerate it. I was grateful that I found a group that I got sober at. A lot of long-term sobriety, a lot of old timers, people that got sober in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and they told me the truth about my condition. I came there as a 16-year-old kid, man, green hair, boots up to my knees, leather jacket, bad attitude, violent, criminal. And they just told me, keep coming back, have a seat, get a piece of the action. We ain't going nowhere with you, kid. We all been where you been, and you don't know where it's at, you know. So if you want what we got, do what we do, But if you think this is a joke and it's all a game, hey, fuck you, go get drunk. If you don't care, why should I? Those are strong words. Might hurt your feelings a little bit. But for me, the kind of person I am, I responded to that. You ain't running me out. I'm here to stay, you know. I'm grateful for that. And they told me the truth about this whole conception of this power, you know. I thought they were trying to trick me. I knew that once they had me and I was in, then the truth was going to come out. And it was going to be that same old time religion that I'd grown up in, you know. I had some experiences that really corrupted and shaped my life for years going forward. And it was tough. It was tough, you know. I didn't get free from that bondage of self playing God till I was 28 years sober, almost 3 decades of physical sobriety. But I was fortunate that I listened to them old timers and I was able to get with the AA collective, a group of drunks. We can do together what we can't do alone, you know. And I could see that, and it worked well for me in the beginning, you know. So if that's where you're at, by all means, man, that's okay. Get that physical sobriety, get that foundation, you know, because then from that you're probably going to see after you've been around for a while and you ain't drank, you ain't taking any pills, and you ain't smoked no shit, no intravenous drugs, you ain't even smoking weed, you know, that, well, why is my thinking still all crazy? Why is my behavior, why don't I have any control over things? Even when I want to do the right thing, I can't do it for very long. I'm a great starter, but I keep messing up. I keep falling short, you know. I'm not very religious, but there's a lot of correlation with what's in our basic text and our 12 and 12 with a lot of spiritual writings, including the Bible. And out of the book of St. Luke, and he says it in a way of frustration and kind of absurdity and self-effacing humor. Why do I do the things that I don't want to do, and I can't do the things that I want to do? That's the human condition. That is for us in recovery in AA, it would be called untreated alcoholism. It's the lack of conscious connection with a power greater than myself. And so I act out, even when I want to do the right thing, you know, I can't sustain it. So I start to see that my life's unmanageable. I start to see that all these things about myself, like no matter what I do, whatever clever little scheme I come up with, using my cunning intellect. And if you like me and you think you got some cunning intellect, you probably same as me. That don't mean you're intelligent. That means you're shady as fuck. And you're willing to do whatever it takes to get what you want. That's what cunning intellect is. Intelligence is something completely different, you know. My God, the prices we pay, the harms we do, you know, can't get out of our own way, no matter what our aspirations and intentions are. Bill Wilson says in the big book, first thing I got to do, and when he says this is with the assumption that you're physically sober. That has to be first. You can't have this experience, walk this path of the 12 steps, and you drinking. I've watched people try to do it. It's very tragic and very hilarious at the same time. We're like that, you know. We're tragic and we're hilarious and we're pathetic in our cups and in our insanity of self. You know, it's been my experience. You know, so Bill says the first thing I got to do that we have to do is quit playing God. We got to stop running the show. We got to stop, as it's described in 6063. You know, the alcoholic is, all the world's a stage. You know, the actor, the director, setting all the scenery. You know, and we love to be in control, but it's actually a delusion because there is no control. I'm not in control of anything, people, places, and things. I'm actually dominated by them. I'm constantly demanding that conditions meet me where I need them to be instead of me adapting to conditions. I tell people that I work with all the time, if you need people to act a certain way and you need things to be a certain way for you to be okay, you're never going to be okay. You're never going to be okay. I got to find a way to be okay with what is. Doesn't mean I'm a doormat. You know, I don't have to take bad treatment. I don't have to allow you to walk on me. I can set a boundary, but I can do that in a healthy way. I can do it without malice, without resentment, without hating you, without losing my temper. I don't have to show my ass every time, I stand up for myself. You know, I tend to see most people in AA, they struggle with that. You know, they either just eat it and eat it and eat it and get resentful and feel sorry for themselves, or they completely go the other extreme. They blow up and they lose lose complete control of themselves and they overreact and then they become self-destructive and harmful to others. There's a way in between all that. But of myself, I can't do any of that. I'm being drug around by these defects of character. Instinctual drives, you know, we all have these basic instincts that are God given. And when they're in balance, they're right and they're beautiful and they're part of being a human being. They're really God manifesting within us, having the experience of being human. They're all part of reality, you know. But what happens is, especially within me, because that's what I'm very most familiar with. But I have also worked with many people and have been around a long time, watching and listening. And all of you, instinctual drives, completely out of balance, and it's always by self-centered fear. And just to read something that really describes the gist of the problem. This is from step 7 of the 12 and 12. As you approach the actual taking of step 7, it might be well if you inquire once more just what your deeper objectives are. Each of us would like to live at peace with himself and with his fellows. We would like to be assured that the grace of God can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. We have seen that character defects based upon short-sighted or unworthy desires are the obstacles that block our path toward these objectives. We now clearly see that we have been making unreasonable demands upon ourselves, upon others, and upon God. The chief activator of my defects has been self-centered fear, primarily fear that I would lose something I already possessed or I would fail to get something I demanded. Living upon a basis of unsatisfied demands, I am in a state of continual disturbance and frustration. Therefore, no peace was to be had unless I could find a means of reducing these demands. That's the gist of it right there. That self-centered fear drives all those instinctual drives for more money, more power, more sex, more love, you know. And I kill myself trying to just be okay, trying to get right. That's why I drink. I can't stand the feel of my own flesh. I feel like I'm turned inside out. And I'm a psychopathic thinker. My mind don't stop. I'm constantly in some form of strategizing, tactics, countermeasures, defensive positions, attack, defend. I'm a person of wrath and vengeance. I got to be two up on you just for me to be even. And that's where that cunning intellect comes into play all the time. Constantly, constantly. My mind never stops. I got this committee in my head, voice of 1,000 monkeys just chattering away all the time. Can have no peace. See, this is self-reliance. This is me playing God. I got to take care of it. I got to handle it. This is all a delusion. You know, the disease and really just the human experience in the absence of a relationship with God or a higher power, if you prefer. This is what this leads to. It leads to suffering. It leads to being drugged around by my instincts. It leads to me living life based upon how I think and how I feel. If you're honest with yourself, those aren't going to be too consistent or reliable indicators for my behavior, my thinking, and my emotions. So I'm all over the place. And they change all the time. And if I have to meet those for me to be okay, and I have to have you meet them for me to be okay. And then the other thing is, I don't even let you know what you need to do for me to be okay. I'm so delusional that I think you should know. But I don't even tell you. I don't even tell you what I need. And then when you don't perform the way I need you to perform, then I'm hurt. And then I'm resentful. And then I'm vengeful. Then I have a little temper tantrum like a child. So I didn't get my way. Who said anything? Whoever made me in charge? Who gave me the right to decide how anybody should feel or act? All delusion created from insane thinking, driven by self-centered fear and instinctual drives that I think have to be met for me to be okay. There's another way. So I got to come to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. And when I say sanity, a lot of us get the picture of mental institution, like straitjacket. And that might be that for some people. Some people get that sick. But what I'm really talking about here is balance. I'm talking about harmony. I'm talking about being able to follow through, to have some consistency, to be accountable. You know, I can try as hard as I want. I can give it all my effort. Our basic text says that lack of power is my dilemma. That power marshaled by my will is insufficient for me to live a life worth living. I have found that to be true. If you haven't found that to be true yet, everything I'm saying is going to fall on deaf ears. If this resonates with you, you might want to consider some of the things I'm saying. But if you still got moves left and your way's working and the way you live isn't objectionable to you, then why would you want to do this? That's back to that step one. And just real quick, I'm going to read this from the end of step one, because this is really the truth. While this insistence that every A must hit bottom first? The answer is that few people will sincerely try to practice the A program unless they have hit bottom. For practicing A's remaining 11 steps means the adoption of attitudes and actions that almost no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. And for those of you who have some physical sobriety but are in self-reliance, playing God, you can change that word out where it says still drinking to still playing God or still thinking, still running the show. Because that's really the crux of the disease. Alcohol is but a symptom. The pills are but a symptom, you know. Who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? Who wants to confess their faults to another and make restitution for harm done? Who cares anything about a higher power, let alone meditation and prayer? Who wants to sacrifice time and energy in trying to carry A's message to the next sufferer? No, the average alcoholic, self-centered in the extreme, doesn't care for this prospect unless they have to do these things in order to stay alive themselves. Under the lash of alcoholism, we are driven to AA, and there we discover the fatal nature of our situation. Then and only then do we become as open-minded to conviction and as willing to listen as the dying can be. We stand ready to do anything which will lift the merciless obsession from us. And if you ain't there, if you if your way's still working, man, I ain't mad at you. You know, go ahead and do it your way. You know, we'll be here, you know, when you get back, if you get back, you know. So I always tell people, you know, I was here when you got here. I'll be here when you leave. I'll be here when you get back. If your wretched ass gets back. So then I can come to believe in that power. There's a God and it ain't me. There's a power and it ain't me. And I need this power so I can live. And it's okay if it's begrudgingly. And if you're having a deeper experience with step two, then it means something more to you because you're evolving. You've probably already been through the steps, maybe a few times. And you're having this deeper experience with this power, with reality. So that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about reality. You know? So from that, then we can make a decision. And I'm going to tell you this right now, it's going to be the most important decision you've ever made in your life. Your life will hinge upon this decision. Our literature tells us that. My experience has shown me that. And it's a decision that I make every day. I re-up every day. God's the plug. I got to go to the plug. Our literature says that the rest of this program, the rest of this process is going to hinge upon that decision. See, because we're going to have to launch a course of vigorous action. And I have found through my own experience and sponsoring and being a spiritual advisor to many people that it's the lack of the depth of their decision, the honesty of their decision in step three that doesn't allow them to have a fourth step experience. Which then leads us back to the other two steps, which really means they're still playing God, which really means they didn't hit a bottom. They still got moves left. And until they bottom out, until all their resources, human resources fail them, they're going to keep doing things their way. Now, there's also a thing that you might have heard this around here, the educational variety. You know, you may not have a spiritual experience in the shape and form that Bill Wilson did. I've had those. It took me 28 years to have it, but it's been a lot of spiritual awakening from my very beginnings up until this day, you know. So this decision, and wherever you're at, that's the beauty of this program. That's the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, AA will meet you wherever you're at. You know, there's none of this is transactional, and there's no punitive damages here. You know, God will meet you wherever you're at when you truly want to, when your heart truly opens and you seek God. See, Bill Wilson had that experience, but he also said, well, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit because I don't want to exactly quote it because I'll screw it up. But basically, that when his heart truly opened to God, God revealed himself to Bill. But as is with most people, he got distracted by worldly clamors, the money, the property, the prestige, pride driven, lust driven, greed driven, sloth driven, you know. And this all came from within him. That's the case with most of us, you know. Even Bill, from his spiritual experience, had years and years of battling with depression, you know. Even though he was the author of this path, he's the one that put it on paper. I believe that was divinely inspired, you know. He couldn't always live up to what he had written. He's a human being, he's flawed. I've been sober a long time. I have a deep, deep relationship with God. I'm madly in love with God. My faith is my superpower. And I fall short every day. I miss the mark every day. My external life right now is in shambles. You know, I've been in a 2-month health issue that continues, um, and I'm in acceptance. My finances are worse than they've been in 30 years. I have levies against my accounts from franchise tax board. I have lawyers working with the IRS. I lost a significant amount of my material wealth in stock market. All of this is going on, and I'm at peace. My heart's filled with joy. I'm enjoying my life. See, my faith is my greatest asset. I truly believe that God's got me. I believe that whatever is happening right now, that I'm okay while it's happening, and that there's something on the other end of it that was necessary for me to continue to be of maximum service to God and my fellows. I believe that. I trust in that. I live that. Do I have moments where I stumble? Yeah. I was just talking to my sponsor last night, and in this 2 months, and this is the beauty, man. This is the miraculous experience of living a life in Alcoholics Anonymous in these 12 steps, living a life in love with God and in service to others. I've had 3 moments, not days, not hours. I've had 3 moments in the last 2 months where I was overwhelmed, where I was feeling helpless and powerless, and thought I couldn't go on anymore. All 3 of them, I called another member of AA. I mean, I was free from it within moments. I used to be dominated by my thinking and the anxiety and the just the overwhelming feeling of like I got to do something, and everything that I did was always, man, it was just always selfish and self-centered. Our literature says that's the root of my trouble. Well, the selfishness and self-centeredness is the self-centered fear driving me, that my instinctual needs and demands, because they're really demands, aren't going to be met, and the fear of I'm not going to be okay. And when I'm not okay, that's a problem because I got to get right. And there will come a time, if you got what I got, when all the worldly clamors, all the distractions, all the sex, all the love hunger, all the food, all the money, all the exercise, all the accomplishments at work will not make me okay. And then I will do what I do. At 28 years sober, I put King alcohol back on the table as an option. I was thirsty. I could not feel the way that I felt. And up until that point, I had never acknowledged this personal relationship with God. Some more religious material calls out the dark night of the soul. I like that because that's what it felt like. The big book talks about it feels like the gates of hell have opened up to us. I like that too. That really describes what I was experiencing. See, I always got to move. Man, I hit the ground. I hit the ground running. I got an iron chin. I could take a beating, and I always got to move after it, man. It was some of my greatest assets. So I thought. And I came to that moment where I didn't have a move, and I needed a drink. I'm not going to kill myself. I know quite a few people who have. In that moment, they killed themselves. They didn't drink. You know, I would drink, and I was thirsty, but I didn't want to drink. And that was that dark night of the soul for me. There was only King Alcohol or God. This God that I had mocked, sneered at, violently shook my fist at, made fun of you know, had thought I'd so cleverly dismissed. And in the end, that's all there was. And in the end, that's what saved me. In the end, that's what gave me life. And God was always there. This is another awareness that I got in Alcoholics Anonymous. All those years that I hated God, all those years that I ranted and raved and made fun of people, oh, your little magic friend that you have, that's so nice, solves all your little problems. Well, people like me, I deal in reality. I got to stand on business. I don't got no time for that fantasy shit. How wrong I was. You know, the beauty of it was that as soon as my heart opened to God and I truly desired God, God revealed himself to me. And there was like, oh no, there was none of that. Like, oh yeah, I've been waiting on you. I knew you'd show up at some point. And this is what you're going to have to do to make that right. There was none of that. It was just pure energy. And I was able to get out of the car I'd been sitting in. I was able to come into my home. I was able to sleep that night. Things started changing immediately in my life. I still had a lot to let go of. You know, it took time to see that every area of my life had to be given over to the master. See, my life is no longer my own. We've been given the most beautiful gift of all. We're the only creature in creation that's been given this gift, free will. And in the end, the blessing is that I gave that free will back to God. Tells me that in step 3. My will and my life is no longer my own. I've made a decision to give those to God. When I was still working through this and sorting it out and unraveling the violent twist of my personality, as our literature calls it, my sponsor would say things like, oh, hold up a minute. What about that decision you made? You said you gave your will and your life to God, right? Is that not true? Have you taken that back? Because if you have, that's fine. But we don't got nothing else to talk about. You go ahead and do it your way. And I'd be like, damn it. But he was right. And the other one he'd say is how free you want to be. See, you can have all the attachments you want. Whatever you think you need to keep, whatever you think makes you you, and you want to hold on to that, go ahead. That'll be to the extent that you suffer. Ain't nobody trying to tell you what to do here. Nobody telling you that. And if anybody is, I suggest you get away from them. If your experience isn't leading you to be willing to do whatever it takes, then you ain't ready. You're not ready. You may have to die. I don't know. I don't say that to scare you. I know I can't scare any of you guys. I ain't trying to. It's just the facts. I don't ever pray for anybody to get sober, stay sober. Because the truth is that I don't know if that's what they're supposed to do. They may not, they may be a court low. They may be one of those people that their purpose was to die violently and horribly, so a guy like me can talk to his prospects and use him as an example. Because I've sponsored a lot of people and I love all of them. And some of them, the best gift that they've given me was their insanity and their not being able to stay sober and them dying on a mattress in an alley in Long Beach. That was their gift to me because I get to utilize that experience when I'm working with other people, you know. And this is life and death. This is life and death. And I have a mind and a disease that, if it is untreated, will tell me always that I'm right and it's your fault. And I'm doing exactly what I need to do. And I got another idea and I got this. And I'm going to figure it out and I can handle it. And I know what's best, you know. And everything I do is fine. And I get darker and I get darker and I get darker. I think I got a bunch of willpower. I think I'm strong, you know. But the real truth is that at some point I'm going to run away or I'm going to blow it up or I'm going to blow it up and then run away. So I have no idea how to live life on life's terms of my own power. That has to come through a power greater than myself. See, the real problem is lack of conscious connection with the power, with God. The solution is conscious connection. The whole design of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is to get you to that power, a power by which you could live that will solve all your problems. All the stories in the back of the big book are individual members of Alcoholics Anonymous sharing their experience on how they got to that power and how that power works in their life. So, in the first three steps, I see that I can't in step one. In step two, I come to see that God can. And in step three, I make a decision to let him. God does not go where he's not invited. But God was always with me. I told you all that I hated God for most of my life. And this is true. But all that time that I hated God, God was with me the whole time, loving me and giving me opportunities to turn this around. And I also believe that God was within me and with me, suffering as his son suffered, as his child suffered. Not judging me, not condemning me, but suffering right along with me, weeping for his child, giving me opportunity after opportunity to turn, you know, turn from what? Turn from self and turn to power, turn to love, turn to reality, turn to principle. See, most of us live our life based upon how we think and how we feel. And this process in Alcoholics Anonymous, this transformational process, will take you to a place where you're anchored to spiritual principles. What does the principle require? I may still have for a while some of that thinking, and I might be emotionally charged and have feelings about it. But being anchored to these principles, I can now, with the help of a sponsor and a spiritual advisor, especially when I'm newer to it, if I'm willing and I have an open mind and I'm honest, I can get help to see what the principle requires. Because I probably don't know, because I've never lived by principles. It's the same thing as what would the master have me do? What a beautiful way of life. Getting there takes time. Having a spiritual awakening takes time. So from that decision, we launch this course of vigorous action. We get down on paper these defects of character where our instinctual drives have always got us in trouble. We see these resentments, how we're dominated by people, places, and things. We see these irrational fears, these healthy fears. We see that we're fear driven, we're fear based. Then we start to see the harms that we've done to others in intimate relationships, sexual and non sexual. We see how selfish and self centered we are. And we have this list of defects of character that are the manifestations of these instinctual drives out of control. And we start to become entirely ready to have this power remove those defects. In step 6, through this whole process, we're building character, we're gaining humility, we're considering new perspectives, we're unraveling the violent twists to our personality, we're becoming more honest, we're getting accountability, we're healing, we're experiencing love, love freely given and love freely received. We're moving away from transactional relationships. We're moving away from wrath and vengeance. We're becoming, our heart space is being opened. We're becoming vulnerable. Our conscience, which is really God conscious, our true self, is starting to demand vulnerability and authenticity. Things are starting to become objectionable to me. The old way of life, how I treat people, how I treat myself, how I operate. My truth is changing. It's no longer becoming relative to where I'm at in any given moment. It's becoming more and more anchored to spiritual truth and law. Just like there's physical laws, there's spiritual law. Everything comes due. And God is going to give me every chance and every opportunity to address everything. God wants me to be free. God wants me to be filled with joy and love. And God wants me to serve. But I got to prepare myself. And when I say prepare myself, it's not really me preparing myself, but I got to be willing. It's what we call in AA a paradox. In third step in the 12 and 12, it says, we've been telling you so far that your willpower is no use to you, and actually it's a hindrance. And now we're telling you that it's going to take all the willpower you got for this part. That seems to be my part in the equation, the willingness. Can I keep showing up? Even when I get mad, even when I have a tantrum, even when my mind's telling me this is stupid, this ain't going to work. Can I keep showing up? Even when I show my ass, can I keep showing up? Can I keep trying? It gives God room for what God does. See, like I said earlier, God does not go where God's not invited. But man, that invitation, what it brings, what it brings. I was so shocked and surprised by the things that started happening. The more willingness I had, the more experiences that I that had no intellectual explanation. See, this is not intellectual. This is experiential. This is spiritual. And your intellect can be a hindrance. The intellect is God-given and it's great and it has a lot of usages, but not in this. This is the spiritual world. You can be too smart for this, but you can't be too dumb. You know. So we start to see these things that have become objectionable to us. And we're gaining in humility, we're gaining in open-mindedness and honesty and considering different perspectives. And that humility, that's the key. The gained humility gets me to a place where I can humbly ask God to remove these shortcomings. And my faith is growing. See, there's been a lot of healing within me, and I have accountability, and I start to utilize these tools of looking at myself, keeping a spotlight on me. Where am I at fault? How did I get the ball rolling? What could have I done differently? See, I got to stop blaming other people. I got to stop blaming situations and places and circumstances. Those are all red flags for me. I got to look at myself. My first sponsor told me, and man, it drove me crazy for a long time. Even when you're right, you're wrong. You know, and man, what a blessing it was to finally understand that. In step 10, it talks about the spiritual axiom. You know, that whenever there's a disturbance within me, something's wrong with me. That doesn't mean it's my fault. It means that I am disturbed and I'm upset, and that has to be addressed for me to be at peace. And when I start looking at these things honestly, I can see that self is always in the way. And it's what that step 7 reading said. You know, self-centered fears come into play, and I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I want, or somebody's going to mess with what I got. And so I'm in this defensive posture, and I'm clamoring and clutching and conniving to get everything that I think I need. You know, where I already have everything that's needed. Nothing needs to be added to me. This is so far beyond the external. This is all an inward journey. Nothing needs to be added to any of us. Who you are, what you have right now, you're okay. It's what you have to let go of. It's the chains and the shackles that you've put on yourself. And only we hold the key to that. Some of you might be familiar with a Sufi mystic named Rumi, and he talks about being the jailer and the prisoner all the same. That the cell door is locked from the inside, or that the cell door opens inward, and all we do is push on it and push on it and push on it and never realize that it's not locked. That we hold the key to our freedom. Lack of conscious connection with God. Conscious connection with God is the solution. For me, that solution to live that way of life, to live in the solution, comes through the 12-step process. It's not the only way to freedom. It's not the only way to conscious connection, but it was the only way that I could have gotten there. It's the beauty of AA. It's one of the blessings of Alcoholics Anonymous. They give you the time, the space, and the structure, the template to sort this out, to work through it yourself, to have your own experience, to take that leap of faith, you know, to live by spiritual principles, to be free. For the first time, find out who you truly are, to let go of the false sense of self, the old ideas, the old belief systems, to be in the flow of life, to be okay with what is, to be madly in love with God and comfortable in your own skin, to have purpose, glorious purpose. Those are the guarantees and the blessings and the promises of this life and a spiritual way of life. Does it mean you're going to get everything you want? Things are going to be how you think they should be? Probably not. No. Thy will not mine be done. That's all I have this evening. Thank you very much.